is now. It's almost there, Luther. It's YouTube is loading up right now.
Okay. If you will, Josh, at the beginning, go ahead, before we start the meeting, go ahead and indicate how we able to meet through this process.
Yes, sir. So this meeting is being held electronically pursuant to executive orders issued by the governor of the state of Tennessee. And having this meeting, essentially, what we've deemed is that it's in the public's interest to help prohibit the further spread of COVID-19, and conducting public meetings via electronic means such as this is a way to do that. So this meeting is being held electronically. It's being live streamed on YouTube. We have accepted public comment from anybody in the public that wanted to provide any comment on any item on the agenda. There are a couple of public hearings, and when we get to those, we'll be able to talk about any comments that we've received. But I think the thing that the governor once said is meeting electronically and limiting public access to the meeting is necessary to protect the public health, safety, and welfare in light of COVID-19. We hope to return to in-person meetings as soon as possible.
Thank you, sir. It's January 26th at 5 p.m. So I'll call the Summit County Planning Commission meeting to order. Kathy, is Kathy available?
Yes, sir. She's in the office here next to me.
Okay, Kathy, if you would you do a roll call, and we need everyone to identify themselves and their location, please.
Luther Bratton.
Present at my office at 820 South Broadway in Portland, Tennessee.
Billy Gamenden.
Yes, ma'am. 1419 Highway 259, Portland, Tennessee.
Mike Honeycutt.
Yes, present. 210 Denise Circle, Cottontown, Tennessee.
Jerry Kirby.
Jerry Kirby, present. 1979 Fairfield Road, Westmoreland, Tennessee.
Jamie Rose.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm at 1007 Islandbrook Drive, Hendersonville, Tennessee.
Chris Taylor.
Yes, ma'am, present, and just pulled up to 115 Trout Valley Drive, Hendersonville, Tennessee.
Tom Tucker.
Present, 224 Sydney Drive, Goodlettsville, Tennessee.
And Mr. Jim Williams.
Thank you. I declare that we have a quorum. First item on the agenda is approval of the December 2020 meeting minutes. If you have an opportunity to read those, I entertain a motion to approve, please.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Rhodes. Is there a second?
Second.
Tom.
Second by Mr. Honeycutt. Any questions? Being none, all in favor of approving the minutes, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is approval of the January 2021 agenda. Have you an opportunity to review that? If so, entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, Billy.
Second, Jerry Kirby.
Motion by Billy, second by Mr. Kirby. Is there any questions? Being none, all in favor, please vote by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Public comment. Has anyone signed up, Josh, to speak tonight on any of the items that we have on the agenda?
No, sir. We have not received any written public comments.
Okay. And I guess if someone's here to speak on a particular item, I see Mr. Graves and I see Mr. Leaf here. So I guess when the appropriate time, they will be brought in to discuss the item that they have on the agenda.
Yes, sir. That's correct. Representatives are here for every item that's on the agenda tonight.
Thank you, sir. First item is Harper Consultant rezoning. Staff comments, please.
Yes, sir. I'm going to share my screen with everybody real quick. Can everybody see this first slide on the agenda?
Yes.
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 This request is located at the intersection of State Route 76 and Halltown Road. It's a little over 2 acres, zoned rural residential at this time. they have submitted an application to the county to rezone that property to commercial general or CG. The site, as I'll show you here in a few minutes, has got some existing non-conforming commercial uses on site at this time. This is basically just a general straight rezoning request. It's not a planning and development that we would typically get. It's just a general rezoning, so there's no specific proposal submitted as part of this application. Essentially, they're trying to rezone it to bring it into compliance with the zoning resolution. And it's my understanding that the intent is to market this property as part of a redevelopment effort to attract a new use there, is my understanding. Kenneth and Amy Harper are the property owners. Greenlit Design is the project representative. Andy Leith is in attendance tonight and can help speak to this item. This is the public notice that was with the paper for this one. This is an aerial view that was provided with the application. As I said, it's a couple acres. It's spread over several tracts. There's some non-conforming issues with the way that it's divided here. If this is approved and it comes to the planning commission for a site plan, eventually we would need that to be remedied, like a combination plat to be done to change all that. There's an existing building here that's the larger building on site. I'll show a picture of it here in a few minutes. It doesn't appear to be used right now. It appears to be vacant. Looks like they've done some work on it, but it's not in 100% good condition, but it's not a dilapidated structure by any means. Over here, this is a barber shop, beauty shop type hair salon. The front of the site is used extensively for parking. I'm not entirely sure on who all is parking there, but I was there today. I had a chance to drive out there and have a look at it. There are a ton of cars parked along the front of the property. Just kind of put it into context. This is the site right here, along with these three little parcels. You can see this is part of the old New Deal area that was a long-standing industrial use going back to the 50s here in Sumner County. Still a lot of light industrial and heavier industrial activity that goes on there. The intent of the commercial general district is here, but basically I won't read all of it, but it's really just to provide a wide variety of different services. It's a very broad commercial designation with everything from warehousing of products to entertainment, food services, hotels, retail establishments, and that kind of thing. It calls for it to be well separated from residential districts, which this in general is. It does have some acre lot type residential in the area though. These are the bulk requirements. The lot would be able to easily satisfy all those. It's got a 2 acre lot size that's proposed or that exists right now overall. 25,000 square feet is the lot minimum. Listing of allowable uses here. The applicant provided all these. They come through our zoning resolution and basically showed the variety of uses that would be allowed per the zoning resolution. You can see it's very broad, everything from clothing stores to barbershops to wedding chapels, any number of different things. So all those would be allowable uses if the property is approved for rezoning. This is just a Google Earth or Google Maps rather street view of the property. You can see, like I was talking about, there's a good deal of parking out in front. I went there today and took some pictures. This is the existing building. As I said, you can tell there's been some construction been going on lately. If you compare it before to here, how it was here to how it is now. There's been some talk in the past about using it as some kind of an event venue or something along those lines. I don't know if anything has materialized on that front. And then looking down toward, this is the barbershop down here. This is Highway 76. So when we look at the comprehensive plan, as I said earlier, it's in the New Deal community. The comprehensive plan supports a rezoning at this location for a number of reasons. Number one, it's already got commercial type structures on the site. So they're non-conforming because they're zoned rural residential and they were zoned agricultural, I believe, before that. It's classified as a traditional village center per the comprehensive plan, and it's in an area that's called the category is industrial revitalization. And so that area calls for it to be redeveloped and change over time. And as I've already said, it's located at Highway 76 and Halltown Road. Highway 76 is a major collector state route, and Halltown Road is a minor collector road, which is functionally classified on our major thoroughfare plan. This is the location here, generally speaking, here in the county. As we kind of zoom in, you can see this gray area here is the industrial revitalization category, and this is that village center, the yellowish color. And I'll zoom in a little closer, you can see. And this is just some pages, and it just kind of shows what is called for at these locations. And same thing for industrial revitalization. Next steps, if this rezoning is approved or recommended for approval by the Planning Commission, it would go to the Legislative Committee for a couple readings, and then we would go back to the full County Commission for a vote. If the County Commission approves it, then that rezoning would become effective at that time. And then if the property owner wanted to redevelop the site, then they would need to come back to the Planning Commission with a site plan that meets all of our requirements at Chapter 14 of the zoning resolution. So landscaping, stormwater controls, signage, all that stuff would need to be turned in. And the comprehensive plan calls for sidewalks at this location because it's a village center type use. And so if this was developed, there would be required to put sidewalks there. Mr. Chairman, there's example motions on the screen. The first is to provide a positive recommendation. The second is a negative or to defer it. If the positive recommendation is passed along, a couple of contingencies or conditions to tack on to that would be that, as I said earlier, if anything gets built there, we need a site plan. The Planning Commission needs a site plan. And second, we're going to evaluate the proposed uses that might come up as they relate to the comprehensive plan, because the comprehensive plan has some wording on what kind of uses or what kind of activities are appropriate at the location. So we would view those proposed uses in light of what the comprehensive plan says. I'll be glad to try to answer any questions, Mr. Bratton. As I said, Andy Leith is in attendance tonight.
Thank you, Josh. Mr. Leith, do you have any comments or would like to add anything to about his presentation?
Chairman Bratton, this is Andy with Greenwood Design. No, sir. Josh does a thorough job with the presentation. I'd only add to it that the owners desiring to do this to clean it up and to be legitimate with their business enterprise there in New Deal. So that's why they're bringing this before this body, is to make their undertaking legitimate.
Thank you, sir. Planning Commission members, do you have any questions for Mr. Leith or Josh? If not, entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve example 1.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. Billy.
Okay, motion's been made and properly second to approve item 1. If no questions, all in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, was that a unanimous yes vote, or was there a no vote in there?
I didn't hear one. Kathy, did you?
No, sir.
That's what she didn't hear one.
If anyone had issued a no vote, please notify us at this time. Apparently not, Josh.
Do we need to do roll call voting on these to?
Good idea, yes, sir. If that would be all right.
I think that would be a good idea if Kathy wouldn't mind doing that.
Okay, thank you. I know at the last meeting, Leo indicated that we probably couldn't if it was clear, but if it's the will of the body, naturally we will. The next item on the agenda, Calico Jack PUD rezoning concept plan. Staff comments.
Yes, sir. And I did want to clarify on that last item. It was a rezoning and public hearing. We had a notice out there for the public to provide us with comments, and we did not receive any for that rezoning request. So I just wanted to clarify that on the record.
Okay. Josh, before you go forward, is there any other item that we need to clear that up prior to the meeting that requires this?
Yeah.
This one requires a public hearing also, doesn't it?
Yes, sir. That's correct. It does. Yes, sir. And we'll clarify that at the end on this one, if that's okay.
That's fine. And Leo, before you start, Josh, should we just open it up for a public hearing, although we in a Zoom situation?
What I would do is I would open it for the public hearing, have Josh confirm that he did not receive anything in writing, and then close the public hearing.
Thank you. Josh, I assume we have that public hearing prior to your presentation.
No, sir. No, sir. We would normally do it at the end, after the presentation.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry for interrupting you a couple of times.
That's okay. So on this, the second item here, Calico Jacks PUD, a rezoning and concept plan request. This item is located at the intersection of US 31E and Sideview Road. Contains 2.73 acres. It's currently zoned commercial services. There's been a change in use on the property recently, and they're looking to rezone it to planned unit development at this time. The existing use that's going on right now is boat sales and leasing. The property owner is Shay Helms. This one is also represented by Andy Leith from Greenlit Design. Previously, for many years prior to probably about October of this past year, the property was utilized as a sales and services business. Holloman's Hydroseed was there, and that use was allowed in the commercial services zone. It was allowed in the previous zoning resolution when it was originally approved. However, there's been, as I said, this boat sales and leasing business has moved in to this location, which it's a higher intensity use, and it's not allowed under the commercial services zoning district. We got some comments about it and went out to check it out and took some pictures. And we determined that was a very significant change in use. Several dozen boats are parked out there in trailers on the grass. And so we sent the property owner a letter informing them that it needed to be brought into compliance through a potential rezoning and a site plan to be submitted to the Planning Commission. And they to their credit, they follow back up and hired Greenlit Design to guide them through this process. This is the public notice that was put out there on that one. This is being rezoned as planned unit development, and so there's a neighborhood meeting required, which was held last week on the 21st. It was held there at Calico Jacks. We had a staff member from my office was in attendance on that one, and we had some folks there that came to just basically see what was going on and ask questions. The turnout was very light. This is the public notice that was sent out to notify people about that public hearing. This is an aerial of the subject property. This is back when it was used by Holloman's Hydroseed. And this kind of put it into context. This is an area that since I've been here at the county, we've spent a whole lot of time on. The Shiloh subdivision is down here to the south, had a lot of drainage issues and other issues that we've managed to work through over the last couple of years. So we keep a pretty close eye on this area as we do the rest of the county. Across the street over here, you've got a gas station that was rezoned to that several years ago, and there's down the way here, there's a mini storage facility that was approved some years ago. This is on industrial. Went out there today and just took some pictures, and I apologize for the glare. The sun was right at my eyes as I was taking these pictures, but you can see there's quite a few boats that are staged up on the property. This whole side over here is basically being used for boat storage and trailer storage. This is the Calico Jacks facility, the former Holloman's Hydroseed. This is their sales office. This is another map here to show it in context. This is the subject property. This industrial area right here is the mini storage facility. And as I said, there's a gas station across the way on Rockbridge Road. It's located within the Crossroads Village Center Place type between Gallatin and Bethpage, which calls for a mix of residential and commercial uses. Here's where it's at on the general county map. As you kind of zoom in, you can see that it's highlighted in a red coloration there, which indicates it's that Crossroads center. And again, this is just a sheet from the comprehensive plan, which talks about what it is and how it should be laid out, what kind of development pattern, which calls for a mix of commercial and residential lots, churches, lodges, schools, and that kind of thing. This is an aerial photo from Greenlit Design, just showing the layout. You can see a good chunk of the lot is taken up by the soils area that was mapped out for it when the lot was platted some years ago. And the concept plan basically just calls for handicap parking to be added. There's a stormwater detention area here. Vehicle storage would be done here. They provided us with a landscape plan as well. Landscape, that's one of the things that came up at the neighborhood meeting. Some of the folks from the Shiloh subdivision had asked if it could be screened and buffered, and that is a requirement. So you see that plantings are proposed here. They're proposing less of a planting scheme here along Highway 31 on account of they want to have some visibility for the boats and people to be able to see what's there when they're driving by. Roads, US 31E is a major arterial road. It has adequate, Sideview has adequate right of way, as does 31E. It's been zone commercial for some time. We're not anticipating this is going to generate large amounts of traffic. It'll generate traffic, but not large amounts of it. So staff didn't require a traffic impact analysis on this one. If the Planning Commission wants one, it can certainly be required though. And we don't anticipate any road improvements to be required. The installation of sidewalks is called for in this area here with the Crossroads Village Center Place type. You see pedestrian accommodation. It says here that sidewalks are required. Connectivity to adjacent areas is important. They've asked for basically a waiver on that, for that not to be required in this instance on account of the Shiloh subdivision doesn't have sidewalks. Nothing else in the area has sidewalks, and it's pretty well built out at this point. And so that there's the argument that they're making is that it doesn't make any sense to do it in this context. Drainage, there's a detention area depicted on the master plan. We don't require drainage calculations and that kind of thing at this phase, but it would be required in the future. There'll have to be a permanent parking area to be constructed for the boats and trailers being stored on site. They can't park it on the grass the way that they're doing now in perpetuity. So that would require drainage plans to be turned into the county engineer and a site plan to come to the Planning Commission. Potentially, it may be able to be approved administratively. As I said, a lot of boats are parked there right now. It needs to be paved with an impervious surface, which is shown on the plan. So asphalt, concrete, tar and chip, something to that effect. That'll generate additional stormwater runoff, and they'll need to mitigate that. There's a ton of drainage issues in that vicinity that we've worked through in the last few years. So we want to take care to make sure that nothing makes anything worse. And all that will require a maintenance agreement with the county. There's that stormwater area I was talking about. And you can see this area here is labeled as impervious surface. They've provided a type 2 landscape buffer. There's a large septic soils area, which they're not going to be able to use to park boats necessarily. I wouldn't recommend that. It could invalidate the lot if they destroy that septic area. The plans that are submitted aren't real clear on how many boats or how they're going to stack the boats and stage them and park them. But when they turn in a site plan, we'll need additional information on that so they can show that. What's shown on the PUD is just really illustrative. This parking here is for employees. They've tailored the amount of parking to meet the county's regulations here for the number of spaces and that kind of thing. Signage, there's an issue with the existing sign. It's very common as you ride up and down US 31. That existing sign is located on state property. It's completely contained within the state right of way. And so it does need to be relocated onto their property. We're willing to work with folks if they can prove that the county issued a sign permit or something to that effect on the sign. We're not been able to find anything like that. Or if they can get permission from TDOT to keep it there, we may be able to work with them on that. But generally, those encroaching signs have to be removed, and TDOT won't grant permission to allow them to stay. And so we'll need a sign permit from them for that existing sign. And this is from the plan. You can see this dark line is the right-of-way line, and the sign is contained on the state property. And that's a picture of it. Again, not a very good one. Sorry about that. Next steps on this one, if a positive recommendation is sent along, it would go to the legislative committee, then to the full county commission for a vote. If that's approved, the rezoning would be effective at that time. And then they need to come back to the planning commission with a site plan for the site work that they're going to do on the parking lot and any drainage and the landscaping as well. Mr. Chairman, there's example motions to approve or deny or defer. If with the motion to approve, there's a contingency on there, just requiring a site plan to be submitted to the county if this is approved.
Thank you, Josh. Mr. Lee, you have any comments?
Thank you, Chairman Bratton. No, sir. We don't have anything else to add. I take that back. I would like to say that I feel like the owners really jumped on this once they were once they were made aware of their situation. And I appreciate the county and Josh and working with the owners while they deal with this and get this worked out.
Okay, thank you. I will entertain a motion to get on the floor for discussion. Is there a motion?
Jerry Kirby, I move to accept.
Item 1,
Yes.
is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been properly second. Now for discussion. Is there any questions to the planner or to Mr. Lee? Being none, all in favor? Let's have a roll call. Kathy, I apologize. Roll call, please, from Kathy. Would you provide that for me, please?
Kirby,
Beg your pardon?
Mr. Kirby,
Jerry Kirby, yes.
okay. Mr. Williams? Mr. Williams?
Vote aye.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Gooden?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Tucker?
Tom Tucker, aye.
And Mr. Taylor?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the motion passed unanimously.
Thank you. Staff, did we have someone to come in after all the members had voted present?
No, sir. I don't think so. We've had some folks that have gotten kicked off and come back in. For some reason, it's the system seems to want to kick you off every once in a while, but I don't think we've had any new members. We had everybody here when the roll was called.
I was thinking I didn't hear Jim identify himself at roll call.
I think we kind of moved out fast, but he's here and he was here at the beginning as well.
Okay, that's why I was going to put it on record because he just made a motion. I wanted to go on the records that he was present. Thank you. Next item, a retreat at Norman Farms. Staff comments, please.
Yes, sir. This is 55 lots contained on 41 acres. You can see from where it's at here, it's in the just north of the bulk of where the city of Hendersonville is on Anderson Road and Jones Lane. Zone plan unit development classified as low density residential PUD. White House Utilities serves it with water and sewer. The property owner is the Jones Company. The developer is Dwight O'Neill. Project surveyor. We got I believe we got somebody. Could everybody maybe mute their system? Sounds like we got wind blowing or something like that. Don't make me mute everybody. All right. I'm going ahead and muted everybody just so everybody can hear. Can y'all give me a thumbs up if y'all can still hear me? Okay. This is 55 lots on 41 acres. Hang on. Developer is Dwight O'Neill. The Jones Company. Project surveyor is Alan Cummings. Civil Site Design Group is the project engineer. We had a preliminary master development plan and rezoning approved on this back in June of 2019. They came back with a preliminary plat on this phase in October of 2019. And so in the interim period, they've been installing infrastructure, roads, water, sewer, electrical lines, and everything else that needs to be done, detention basins, that kind of thing. And we'll get to some pictures here in just a few minutes to show the status of the property right now. This is an aerial of the subject property here. You see it's at Anderson Road and Jones Lane. This is the phasing plan that we have for it. What's before the Planning Commission here tonight is just this section right here. It's labeled Phase 1. This is the final plat that was submitted by the applicant. We have received the signed copies back. All the applicable signatures have been obtained upon the final plat at this time. As far as the road network, everything has been substantially constructed, and all the roads meet or exceed the standards contained in the subdivision regulations. 50 feet of right of way, road widths are 24 feet, 12-foot travel lanes. All the proposed streets are to be public, with sidewalks on both sides of all internal roads. The frontage along Anderson Road, which is a city street, not a county street, is to be improved with this phase with 4 extra feet. They've coordinated that with the city of Hendersonville, and the city of Hendersonville, I believe, is going to have them complete that this spring is when they're wanting that to be done. They've gone ahead and added the shoulder on, but it's not been paved at this time. And we followed up with the city of Hendersonville, and they're okay with this. They've signed the plat as well. We actually put a signature block for the city on the plat too, because they have right of way on the plat. As the Planning Commission might remember, I sent an email out some time ago. We had received a payment that had been agreed to by the developer back during the initial stages of the project. Voluntary transportation in lieu of payment of $900 per lot. So we received $49,500 on this one back about a month or so ago. And that's been deposited and is in an account at this time. Drainage, the applicant has installed all drainage improvements. Those are functioning as sediment basins right now during construction and will continue to do so. There's no net increase of stormwater runoff that's projected or proposed by the developer. Calculations, I believe, show a reduction in all site runoffs. We've received a stormwater maintenance and inspection agreement. There's 8 lots on the plan that are designated as critical lots due to slope issues and that kind of thing. They'll have to address those during construction, and we'll require an individual plan to be submitted on each lot with the accompanying fee for that prior to the issuance of a building permit. It's pretty typical in most parts of the county when you have steep lots that are served by sewer like this to have them be designated as critical lots. As far as drainage, there's a detention basin that's been constructed here, and here, as I said, they're functioning as sediment basins. They got a big rain in them last night. And then Norman Lake also serves to capture stormwater. Which is to the south here. Utilities and fire protection, as I said, White House Utilities serves this subdivision. Hydrants are installed and will exceed county requirements, and that'll be met across the subdivision. Amenities, the master development plan calls for the construction of amenities with phase 2. There's a mail kiosk that's planned to be constructed near Anderson Road with this phase. They'll be getting a building permit and everything for that after the final plat is approved. And sidewalks are to be installed on the frontage of all the lots as the houses are built. We've gone out, I went out and had a look at it today, but these pictures are from last week. Had a staff member go out there and that's been doing the construction inspection on this and took some pictures. This is the entrance here off of Anderson Road. You can see they've got curb and gutter and the asphalt down. We'll just kind of run through them. You can see fire hydrants installed throughout the subdivision and utilities locations and that kind of thing marked. You can also see seed and straw has been spread out on the site, which stabilizes it and helps to keep it from eroding and getting sediment everywhere. You can tell from the scope of it, this is a pretty good sized development for us here in the county. And that's just kind of a panoramic view looking back down toward Anderson Road and that's Norman Lake down there, which is going to be a really central amenity to this development. All the infrastructure is installed upon a substantial completion. It's been inspected throughout the process by county staff. All the pipe has been inspected. The roads have been inspected and road tested by county staff or with county staff present. There's been a bond provided to the highway department to ensure that anything else that needs to be done is complete. Final surface coat of asphalt is included in that amount, as is on this one, sidewalks. And so the highway department is in concurrence with us that that's something we need to ensure gets done. And so the sidewalks have been bonded along with the surface coat of asphalt. They've also provided us with a letter of credit that covers 50% of the overall cost of stormwater infrastructure. So all the pipe and ponds that have been installed, 50% of what's been installed is $241,000. So they provided that letter of credit to us. It's in our files now. We're going to need as-built from them prior to the signature of the final plat by me, the Planning Commission Secretary. Any remaining punch list items, we have that just as a standard thing. If we see anything needs to be fixed between now and the signature, they'll need to fix it. Once everything is addressed, the plat will be signed and recorded, and they can obtain building permits. And so, Mr. Chairman, there's example motions on the screen here to approve or to approve without conditions or to deny it. Number one there has a few conditions. First is that construct that punch list construction and stabilization item prior to my signature. Approval of as-built by the county engineer prior to my signature. The stormwater maintenance agreement needs to be recorded with the final plat, and they have to keep any bonds or anything in place until such time as we provide authorization to release them. Casey Leroy from Civil Site Design Group is in attendance tonight, and the developer, Mr. O'Neill, is as well. And I'm going to try to unmute everybody now, if I can. There we go. I think if you guys will push your space bar, it ought to unmute you, but I'm not totally sure.
They got it.
Just to clarify, holding down the space bar unmutes it until you let go. You need to click unmute to keep it muted.
Yeah. So you go down on the bottom left-hand side.
Josh, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. As I stated earlier, entertain a motion to get on the floor so we can discuss this item. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve example 1.
Is there a second?
Chris Taylor was a second.
Thank you. The item's on the floor. Is there any discussion, any questions from the developer or planner as it relates to this item? Being none, all in favor, please vote by saying aye. I'm sorry. Kathy, roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Mr. Goodman,
Yes.
Mr. Lightfoot,
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker,
Tom Tucker, aye.
Mr. Kirby, Mr. Kirby,
We'll come back to Jerry.
Mr. Taylor,
Yes, ma'am.
and Mr. Williams. Mr. Jim Williams,
There's both still muted.
Yeah.
Josh, is there any way for us to?
There, Mr. Williams, did we give out the button, yes or no? He's unmuted now.
Send him a text message.
Mr. Williams, are you there?
Mr. Williams is here.
And right now we're voting on the retreat at Norman Farm Phase 1 final plat. What's your vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
We never did get Mr. Kirby unmuted. I've asked him to unmute, but I think he may be having some technical issues.
Okay. We have, to clear this up, we have everyone voted yes except Mr. Kirby. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. Josh, if you will, forgive me, I forgot to include the public hearing at the end of item 2. Would you make a statement about if anyone had signed up to speak at that public hearing? If not, we'll just move forward.
Yes, sir. We have not received any public comment on that. As we said, there was a public meeting that was held last week by the developers or the applicant's representative, but we did not receive any feedback here at this office in the form of emails or calls on it, as far as I know.
Thank you, sir. Item 4, retreat at Norman Farms Phase 2. Staff comment, please.
Yes, sir. Share my screen here. So this is a revision to a preliminary plat that was approved by the Planning Commission in July of 2020. The current submittal before the Planning Commission contains 51 lots on 49 acres in this phase. A lot of that acreage is Norman Lake. The submittal before the Planning Commission has one more lot than what was initially approved back in July. This piece of property, like Phase 1, is owned low density residential plan unit development, located within the Hendersonville urban growth boundary and served by the White House Utility District. Jones Company LLC is the developer. Civil Site Design Group is the project representative on this. Subject property is here. Here's the phasing plan. Basically everything south of this line here, all the common open space, this entire area here is Phase 2. As I said, a total of 51 lots. So a preliminary plat containing 50 lots was approved by the Planning Commission in July of 2020. Since that time, y'all may have seen some emails that the staff here that I'd sent out about some amendments to the master plan. They're wanting to do some tweaks here and there and some changes. And those were both approved administratively because they didn't rise to the level where we felt like they needed to go back to the Planning Commission and the County Commission. The first master plan amendment didn't have much impact on Phase 2, but the second one did. What it did was it reconfigured the intersection at the southern Jones Lane intersection of this development, and did a lot better connectivity to a road stub to the north. I'll show y'all what that looks like here in just a minute. And it eliminated several kind of unusual flag lots that have been proposed for this phase of the development as well. So these changes, it's a little bit contradictory, but in terms of the master plan, which is really a conceptual agreement, or a conceptual plan, there were minor changes that staff could approve. But in terms of the preliminary plat, which is a construction document, there are major changes. They involve changes to constructability and that kind of thing. And so we looked at that and determined that this needed to go to the Planning Commission so you could have a look at it. This is the original Phase 2 preliminary plat that was approved in July of 2020. So what I want to bring your attention to is this road right here. This is Jones Lane, makes this curve here around the bottom of the property up toward Anderson Road. You see how it just goes to a straight line basically to this horseshoe shape here with a little pocket park there. And then there were several flag lots that were configured here around it as well. As they got into this a little deeper, they really realized that the topography here was much more challenging in this area right in here than they thought it was. And so they initially came to us and wanted to just basically keep this curve intact and connect a new road, have this entrance be somewhere over here. We looked at that and really just didn't like it, to be honest with you. It just wasn't, it didn't look like it was going to improve the ability of the people to get through that area with that really sharp curve. It wasn't going to solve any problems for the county. And so we told them we couldn't look at that as a minor amendment. So they went back to the drawing board as they do and came up with another solution that ended up looking like this instead. So down here, instead of having this T what they've done to get away from some of this really steep topography they had in here. They've curved the road around. They've pulled this road up. It's going to improve sight distance a little bit here, we think. This will be a three-way stop here. And so they've taken this road and you see this road stub up here that was just kind of hanging out. They've connected this road to this road stub. And so now you'll have a north-south connection from the top of the property all the way down, which is very desirable. It's going to connect into City of Hendersonville property to the north. And eventually there's a new large street that's going to be connected by the City of Hendersonville up there that this will connect to eventually. So we're actually doing some planning here during the development process, which is very good. And as I said, those flag lots here were kind of unusual, and they've done away with those and just reconfigured this. So it's a pretty significant reconfiguration of that intersection, but it really didn't change the intent of the plan. So we processed that administratively. I sent a revision to the plat to you guys this morning. They had initially turned in some of these lots here were less than 9,000 square feet, not by a lot, but by some. And the master plan calls for at least 9,000 square feet. So they fixed all that in this submittal that's before you here this evening. All the lots meet the lot size requirements of the master plan. Internal streets as they're proposed will meet all of the county regulations that are applicable for this one. When they came in, the subdivision regulations called for 24-foot road widths and that kind of thing. Proposed streets are to be public with sidewalks on both sides. Jones Lane, that really sharp turn there, as I said a little while ago, is going to be a three-way stop. The highway department really insists on that, and we definitely agree. It's going to be a lot safer. That's a very tough corner to make right there, as it is right now. The frontage along Jones Lane is going to be improved with this phase with 4 extra feet added on. They'll need to coordinate that with Miss Judy's office. One thing that she mentioned as well, when they do that reconfiguration, if there's leftover pavement or anything that's going to be there from the old road bed that needs to be fixed by the developer, they've agreed to do that. That'll be restored back to a grassed condition. And the developer, when they come back for a final plat, will need to do transportation in lieu of payment, just like what they did with phase 1. That's a voluntary agreement that they've made with the county. For utilities and fire protection, water and sewers provided by White House Utilities. Hydrants are shown on the preliminary plat like they need to be. And no lot will be more than 500 foot from a fire hydrant, which is optimal. Comprehensive construction plans and drainage calculations have been turned in. They've been reviewed by the county engineer. They've had a couple of revisions. I believe they're getting real close to being approved at this time. They haven't been signed off on, but they're very close. It shouldn't be very much longer until those are approved. On-site detention is depicted. On this one, there's 15 lots that are designated as critical lots due to slope issues that we talked about with phase 1 and wetlands and that kind of thing. So each one of those will need to turn in an individual grading plan and the fee for that as well. And that'll need to be reviewed and approved by the county engineer prior to getting a building permit. As I said a minute ago, final set of construction plans still needs to be approved, but we're getting close. This will require a stormwater maintenance and inspection agreement. Amenities, sidewalks on both sides of the road. There's extensive amenity areas within phase 2. There's walking trails, a lawn and play area, community garden. The lake itself is in phase 2. And so amenities contained within phase 2 will need to be installed with phase 2 prior to the final plat being recorded in accordance with the approved master plan. And that's right here on the master plan that was initially submitted and approved and is still in place now. It calls for the amenity areas to be in this area here to be constructed with phase 2. And as also for Jones Lane to be widened, as I mentioned. And so, Mr. Chairman, there's example motions there on the screen. And I'll just go through some of the example conditions. First is that the county engineer needs to sign and approve those construction plans prior to them getting a land disturbance permit. Everything needs to be substantially complete, just like it was for phase 1 before they come back with a final plat. All the amenities contained in phase 2 need to be complete prior to coming back with a final plat. we'll need as-built for them with the final plat when they come back for final plat before it can be recorded. Same thing with the stormwater maintenance agreement. As I said, per the road department's request, Jones Lane and the southern entrance to the development will be a three-way stop. I got an email from Ms. Leroy today confirming that that is the plan. That's what they're going to do. And then to go back to phase one, we feel like with the recording of the final plat for phase two, that's when they need to have everything done on the entryway features for phase one. And so we'll tie the signature on this phase to having all the entryway monumentation and that kind of thing on Anderson Road complete. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. Like I said, I know Ms. Leroy is in attendance and Mr. O'Neill is as well.
Mr. O'Neill, anyone representing the owners here, would you like to have any comments? Being none, I'll entertain a motion to approve for discussion.
Motion to approve using example number 1.
Is there a second?
Second by Chris Taylor, sir.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any questions for planner or for the developers in this project? Being none, all in favor, please. Boy, I just can't get used to it, can I? Kathy, would you please provide a roll call, please?
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna make myself a large note.
Mr. Bratton,
Yes, Luther Bratton.
Mr. Honeycutt,
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker,
Tom Tucker, aye.
and Mr. Kirby,
Jerry Kirby, aye.
Mr. Williams,
Kim Williams, aye.
thank you, Mr. Govenden,
Yes, ma'am.
and Mr. Taylor.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you. This item passes. The next item is resub of Lot 1 of Anne Marie Thompson preliminary plat. Staff comments, please.
Yes, sir. This is a 4-lot subdivision, about 4 acres on US 31E, zoned rural residential. That's not in any urban growth boundary. Richard Graves is the project surveyor and Andy Leith is the engineer on this one. Preliminary plat came to the Planning Commission and was approved back in July. They ended up running into some issues with the railroad on some old right-of-way that's there. Caused them to have to reconfigure this to some extent. Because it has a preliminary plat that's been approved, they're requesting that the current zoning regulations requiring the establishment of an HOA and dedication of open space not apply. This is the preliminary plat that was approved. All the lots were going to access old Highway 31. That ended up not being feasible because the railroad would not sell them the property essentially in order to, there's abandoned rail bed here along old 31. So they had to turn it around the opposite way on the main highway. When they submitted a sketch plat to that effect, they got turned down by the Planning Commission back in October. They came back the next month with a sketch plat changing that, basically adding a cul-de-sac here and getting everybody access onto one point instead of a bunch of different driveway accesses. This sketch plat was approved back in November. And this is the preliminary plat that's before the Planning Commission right now. But not in a flood area or anything. We'll need a water pressure and a water and fire pressure availability letter is going to be required. Just put everybody on notice. We're going to start, it's been a requirement for a while, but we're not going to be putting any more preliminary plats on the agenda if we don't have a water availability letter. That's something that we have to have in order to determine if you can hook a fire hydrant onto it. So we have trouble getting those sometimes. We didn't, on this one, we may have gotten one, but I may have missed it. It's definitely not unique to this one or this applicant or surveyor or anybody. They're hard to get sometimes, but we're gonna need those for all preliminary plats to get them on the agenda. The adequate right of way is shown on 31. The preliminary plat shows a cul-de-sac proposed that's going to access 31E for all lots. That cul-de-sac is proposed to be a public road. We've got construction plans before the county engineer right now. He sent comments over to the engineer yesterday, I saw. Next steps, if this preliminary plat is approved, construction of the cul-de-sac, the county standards is going to be required, as well as the installation of that fire hydrant that's going to need to be put in there. Once that's done, they can come back with a final plat to be submitted to the Planning Commission for approval. Mr. Chairman, there's example motions on the screen with example conditions. First is that the county engineer approves the construction plans prior to grading and getting a land disturbance permit. The cul-de-sac be constructed in accordance with county specifications. Fire hydrant needs to be installed as depicted upon the submitted preliminary plat. And the applicant needs to pay applicable construction inspection fees of $100 per lot with the submittal of that final plat. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. Mr. Graves is in attendance tonight, and I believe Mr. Leith is as well.
Thank you, Josh. Mr. Graves or Mr. Leith, do you have any comments? Being none, I entertain a motion to get it on the floor to discuss this item. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve example 1.
Mr. Honeycutt had to make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Yes, sir. Chris Taylor for a second.
Okay, thank you. Motion's been made in seconds. Any discussions, any questions for Mr. Graves or staff? If none, Kathy, would you provide a roll call, please?
Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Mr. Gavin,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker,
Tom Tucker, aye.
Kirby,
Jerry Kirby, aye.
Mr. Williams, Mr. Williams, Mr. Honeycutt,
Jim?
He's muted.
Jim? If Kathy just,
Oh, yes.
thank you,
Mr. Williams.
Mr. Williams vote yes.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Taylor?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And Mr. Bratton, the roll call is complete.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item, Shallow Ridge Farm Estates. Staff comments, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, this is a sketch plat for 38 residential building lots and several lots of common open space. The subdivision is depicted as occurring over the course of 2 phases. Proposes to, kind of redundant right there. It's located along Pleasant Grove Road. It's some rural residential. David and Derek Bandy are the property owners on this one. The project surveyor is Richard Graves, and the project engineer on this one is going to be Jake Vincent from Reagan Smith. This is the subject property. It's been kicking around since pretty much almost since I've been here with the county. There's been various folks that have looked at it. I believe the Bandys have purchased the property. They are the owners at this time. This is the sketch that is turned in. What's proposed with phase 1 basically is to subdivide the frontage along Pleasant Grove Road, and with phase 2 to construct a road and cul-de-sac back into the interior of the property to get additional lots constructed. Be very similar to what they did on Greenfield Lane. If you guys remember Sunset Springs or the Lester Ray Bullard subdivision, they took a similar approach there, and they have constructed the road in the way that they said they would. Utilities and fire protection. There's not any hydrants depicted on the sketch plat. That's not a requirement, but we don't know what kind of water pressure or anything is available there to serve these lots, and if hydrants are going to be possible. I believe it'll be served by Westmoreland Utilities if it is, and you know. The take we would have would be that multiple fire hydrants are going to be necessary for this development. This is a pretty good sized development. And so it would probably not be something that we'd want to see no hydrants be put in if it could be avoided. Adequate right of way will need to be dedicated along Pleasant Grove Road. So that's 30 feet from the center line. The proposed lots meet all the requirements that are 150 feet wide along Pleasant Grove Road, which is required. Required open space is depicted on the plat. When they come with preliminary, they'll have to narrow that down a little bit. 10% of the overall property has to be dedicated as common open space. And an HOA will be required. There'll be storm detention required on this one. And so an HOA will be required to maintain that. We don't want that to be put off on the individual property owner. And all the drainage calculations and stormwater documents that we normally would require will need to be turned in with this. And they'll need to receive a notice of coverage from TDEC. Next step, if this sketch plat is approved, they'll need to receive preliminary and then final plat approval from the Planning Commission. And they'll need to submit drainage calculations and erosion control plans and all that stuff. All the stormwater requirements are going to need to be met on this one. Mr. Chairman, there's example motions there on the screen. The one to approve has a condition requiring that the construction plans need to be turned in with phase one. Be glad to try to answer any questions. I know Mr. Graves is in attendance tonight if y'all have questions about this one. We received a few calls and questions about it in terms of, whether the lots perk and that kind of thing. So Mr. Graves might want to clarify just a little bit, phasing and the perking of the lots and that kind of thing, if you can.
Mr. Graves. Is Mr. Graves muted? Mr. Graves.
No, he's not muted.
Hello?
Josh is
Hello?
I'm looking at him right now. I'm not able to hear him. He's talking to us. I don't know. Sorry, Richard.
Is this Josh?
Yes. Is this Mr. Bandy?
It is.
Okay. Well, Mr. Bandy, you're the property owner, so if you wanted to speak on this, that would be totally appropriate.
Yeah, we're in the process right now of getting all the perks done, and in conjunction with what you were asking for. We would like to develop the lots along the road in order to retrieve some of our investment, because the land property now is so high that you have to retrieve some of your money back at the beginning in order to continue. But as I discussed this with Josh, we're willing to put in the entrances to this new road, just the culverts, the head walls, that kind of thing. Therefore, that would prove, and we've also proved at Greenfield Lane, that we will do what we say we'll do. And we were asked a long time ago if we was going to develop a piece of property, that we would show the entire property in our plans through the entire process. And that's what we're trying to do, and trying to go by the guidelines you set.
Thank you, sir. I assume he spoke for the property owner, so there's no need to wait on Mr. Graves, is it?
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Luther?
Yes, we can hear you. The owner has, I think, answered most of the questions that we had, unless you have something you want to add.
Yeah, well, there is the layer must have got turned off. There's a 6-inch water line on Pleasant Grove Road, and we will get the water availability and the pressures on that. It's a brand new line that's out through there. And what's more typically on those lines doesn't have a problem with pressure, but we will confirm and get you some data about the fire hydrants.
Thank you, sir. Okay, at this point, entertain a motion to approve so planning commissions can discuss it.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve using example number 1.
Is there a second?
Second.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
No, go ahead.
So does any of the members have any questions for Mr. Graves or the owner at this point? Since you don't, Kathy, would you provide a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt,
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker,
Tom Tucker, aye.
Mr. Kirby,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
and Mr. Gooden.
Yes.
Mr. Bratton, the roll call vote is complete.
Thank you. Motion carries. Last item 7, cross-driven construction site plan. Staff comments, please.
Yes, sir. This is request for site plan approval for a construction sales and services business to be located, or currently located actually, 1567 Brinkley Branch Road in Hendersonville. This property dates back doing what they're doing now. The cross-driven construction has been operating off this property for some time. They came to the Board of Zoning Appeals a year or two ago and got a special exception for them, or a conditional use permit to operate the business. Since then, they've decided to expand their operations. They got approval back then to operate out of a single wide trailer that was there on site. What they're proposing to do now is to construct a new facility on site that will house their operations. And so because it was a significant expansion of the use, we had them go back to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and they granted a new special exception on this item on December 10th, 2020. One of the conditions of that was that they needed to obtain site plan approval from the Planning Commission, which is going to authorize new construction of a new office building and workshop to be utilized as a construction sales and services business. That existing mobile home will need to be removed. We have it as a established goal to remove those single wides whenever possible when they're not being used and nobody's living in them. And so the existing mobile home will need to be removed prior to the issuance of a CO on this one when this building is finished. The proposed building is going to have a finished floor area of approximately 8,900 square feet. So it's a fairly substantial building. Located here on 16.9 acres, zoned rural residential, and represented by Van Oldham of Evergreen Site Solutions. This is the subject property, and this is just the general vicinity of where it'll be located here. These are when you go into the zoning resolution, we categorize this use as construction, sales, and services. BZA had to confirm that they would meet all the requirements contained there and to confirm that they did, and granted them that special exception. And one of the conditions is that site plan approval is required from the Planning Commission. This is a site plan that was turned in. This is the proposed building. I'm going to zoom in on it just a little bit here. A lot of this is some slope, and this hatched area here, I believe, is for water quality purposes. It's something that they have to do for water filtration and making sure the water leaving the site is taken care of. There's a parking area depicted here with 4 or 5 parking spaces, which they provided some calculations that support what they've shown as far as parking. There's no hydrants depicted on the site plan. We did request that Mr. Oldham provide us with a water availability letter from White House Utilities, and he did. And actually, when it didn't say what we needed it to say, we asked him to go back and get another one, and he did that as well. And we got our question answered. Our question was, can a hydrant be put on that water line? And it cannot. The White House Utilities has said it will not support it. And so what the applicant has proposed to do here is to make, as some of the subdivision developers have done, make a dedication to the volunteer fire department in lieu of putting a hydrant on, because they can't. If that line would accommodate a hydrant, we would require that hydrant to be put on. But since it can't be done, this is the alternative. Brinkley Branch Road is a fairly narrow road. This use is not something that calls for any kind of road improvements necessarily, but the Board of Zoning Appeals, when they heard this one, they made it a condition of approval that this site was not to be served by semi trucks. And that was something that the applicant's representative agreed to. All of the zoning standards appear to be met as far as setbacks and building heights and lot coverage and that kind of thing. There's substantial tree cover and buffering in terms of distances from property lines. So that satisfies our buffering requirements that we have. Mr. Oldham has turned in drainage calculations and sediment control plans and everything else that's needed to be turned into the county engineer. And they've gone through those. I think there's a very small increase in post-construction runoff that's proposed on this one. It's less than 1 cubic foot per second. So it's not something that the expense of stormwater detention is necessary on a 15 or 16 acre site. It just didn't seem like it'd be a reasonable thing to require. So that wasn't required in this instance, but it was looked at. They have obtained a notice of coverage from TDEC already. They sent that information to us. Once the site plan is approved and they want to go to construction, they'll need to have a pre-construction meeting with us, and we'll issue a land disturbance permit from our stormwater manager to them. They did provide us with some building elevations to show what the building was going to look like. That wasn't something that was absolutely required, but it's absolutely appreciated when folks do that. This is the front building elevation. The rear elevation, the back of the building the front is primarily office space and that kind of thing. The rear, the bulk of the building is a workshop for the guys that do construction there when they're going to be fabricating stuff on site and that kind of thing. This is the side elevation here of the structure with left and right elevations. This is where they showed us how they're meeting parking requirements and site data. The parking area for this, just like the other one that we heard tonight, it needs to be an impervious surface. Gravel is not an acceptable alternative. It needs to be chip and sealed concrete or asphalt, and they've agreed to that, and it's reflected in their calculations that they submitted. These are pictures from when the BZA heard the item a while back. You can see the single wide trailer there. The building site is actually a little bit further up the road, back over in this area. Mr. Chairman, there's example motions on the screen. The first one to approve has some example conditions. The first one is that any conditions the BZA applied will continue to apply. The Planning Commission isn't superseding any of those. County engineer needs to issue final approval on the construction plans, which they're really close, and they may actually be approved at this point. I can't remember. Any building permits, zoning permits, land disturbance permits, those all have to be obtained here from the county. Septic disposal is going to need to be looked at. Mr. Oldham has indicated that the soil scientist has looked at the lot, and there's plenty of soils, and they've worked around those to not disturb those. Shouldn't be a heavy septic user, so it shouldn't be difficult to maintain that whatever permit that they need there. There's an existing sign on site. They'll need to get a sign permit for that, and it'll need to meet the county requirements that are in effect at this time. That existing single wide trailer needs to be removed prior to issuing a CO by the county, and stormwater maintenance agreement will need to be entered into. There's some stormwater infrastructure that's going to need to be required on this one in terms of pipes and some swales and that kind of thing, and the stormwater manager felt like an agreement would be the appropriate thing to do. And they're going to be making a voluntary dedication to the volunteer fire department for that area in the amount of $3,000. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. I think Van Oldham is in attendance tonight and can speak if there are any specific questions.
Thank you. Van, do you have any comment?
No, sir. Thank you, Josh. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Just want to entertain a motion to place it on the floor so we can discuss it. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve example 1.
Mr. Rhodes, motion, is there a second?
Yes, sir. Chris Taylor.
Mr. Taylor has the second. I have a motion and a second. So any discussion? Do you have any questions for either Josh or the petitioner? If none, Kathy, roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Mr. Gamindon,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Honeycutt,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker,
Tom Tucker, aye.
Mr. Kirby,
Aye.
Mr. Williams, Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Rhodes,
Yes.
and Mr. Taylor.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Gamindon, the roll call vote is complete.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bratton, the roll call vote is complete.
Thank you, Kathy. The motion carries. Is there any other business to come before this commission? If not, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
By Mr. Honeycutt. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second? Any questions? Being none, all in favor, vote to adjourn, say Kathy, roll call, sorry.
Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Mr. Govington,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Honeycutt,
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker,
Tom Tucker, aye.
Mr. Kirby,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor,
Yes, ma'am.
and Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Bratton, the roll call vote is complete.
Motion carries. Good night, man.
Night.
Good night.
I did want to say
Good night, everybody.
before everybody gets off, we'll probably have the next meeting next month in person. We're probably going to have some very substantial items that are going to come before the planning commission next month. So if anybody wants to talk about it, just give me a call. That right now, that's the plan though. Unless we just have, too many members that are too concerned about doing it in person. But there is one item that's allowed to be coming up next month that's going to require a substantial public hearing in all likelihood. And so it might be better to do that one in person than virtually, and have technical issues and that kind of thing.
And with that, Josh said, if any member has any issues as it relates to that, if you would call Josh personally and make him aware of your concerns. With that being said, good night, man.
Good night.
Thank you.